Hello and welcome back to the Time to Talk podcast. I am your host, Charles Scar, on the Time to Talk podcast, and this is my year-end video. I have been absent and haven't really recorded anything. I think it's about a week ago I recorded something, but been sick. A lot of people I know have been sick. My family, my boys were sick. My wife was sick. I got sick. So been laid up, and of course we had the holiday, so, Christmas Eve and Christmas and celebrating Christmas Eve with family. I've just been busy, but so many things going on, so many things to talk about, so many things to wrap up when it comes to the end of the year. I thought about this. My main concern was trying to just say, let me get on here and talk to people and just end the year in some way. I need to say something about a few things. And I was trying to figure out, well, where do I start? Do I do a total sort of encapsulate, everything that went on, or do I just pick a few things? The election seems to be the one thing, the most historic election in the history of, from what I can remember in my time. And that seemed to be the biggest thing. And I was like, that just dominated everything. I know there's other things that happen. And obviously we have, the wars going on, still going on, genocide taking place from, Israel and Netanyahu, war criminals. Hopefully that will be, hopefully he'll be arrested and put where he belongs. And hopefully it'll end soon, in 2025. But we still don't know. But anyway, in this intro, first of all, happy holidays, everyone. I hope you had a great holiday season. Happy Hanukkah, happy Christmas, happy Merry Christmas, happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, whatever your thing is for this time of the year. Just getting together with family and eating food and indulging on tons of sugar and carbs. I hope you had a good one. I hope your family's well. I hope everyone's well. I've been sick, but let's get into it. There's a couple of things that I want to start off with right away that are more trending, current topics that have really just impacted me in a way that ended my year really, really depressing. First one being, there was a woman who was set ablaze, set on fire on the New York City subway. My lovely New York City. This woman was set on fire by a homeless man. This guy was apparently an illegal immigrant who entered the country through Biden and Harris, mind you. The wave of illegal immigrants that have come through. Now, this guy was deported previously during the Trump administration. Again, not a shout out to Trump, not saying Trump's the greatest guy in the world. I'm a MAGA supporter. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this guy had been previously deported under the Trump administration's immigration policies, and then obviously found his way back in through Biden and Harris and their, terrible immigration policy. Now, what's disturbing about this, besides the fact that it's not like a really major news story, it's getting a little bit of coverage on mainstream media, but not as much as I would suspect it would get. And I'm bothered by the fact that I can't explain. I literally was up late nights with this image in my head. Now, I've seen the video. If you guys have seen the actual video, I'm not going to play it here on the show. I don't want to do that. I don't think YouTube would. I mean, it's available. You can find it. I just don't want to play it here. So if you've seen it, then fine. The image I just showed was blurred out, pixelated. But the woman is standing up. What stands out to me, besides this barbaric, ridiculous crime by this obvious crazy person, was that she is standing on the subway. She's standing near the door. There's a rail. If you get onto the subway, there's like the seats right there to the left and to the right. And she's holding on to a rail and she's standing there and burning alive. And I'm watching this and when I first saw it, I was trying to make sense of, is she already dead? She's just burned, like she's frozen there, but she was moving. And I keep trying to figure it out. And I'm watching. I'm like, how is she standing there? That's not the most disturbing part. That is partly obviously disturbing, watching someone burn. But officers are walking by while this woman is standing there ablaze. And they're doing nothing. It's like a casual, if you watch this scene, if you haven't seen it, I beg you to watch it, to just brace yourself. But to understand what I'm saying, watch that scene. There are cops that go through the frame that stand there. There's no attention to this woman. There's no sense of, whoa, there's a human being burning right here. Throw a coat on her, throw something on, get her off the subway, put her on the floor, roll her around. I don't know. I'm not a fire safety expert. I do know from when I was a kid to, get down and roll, and somebody should have gotten her down on the ground. And, it's wintertime in New York. People are wearing coats and scarves. New York City police officers stood there while this one. I cannot fathom it. I can't. It almost brings me to tears every time I talk about it and think about it. And the image that is seared into my mind watching that woman and watching the lack of reaction by the people around. Now, it gets even worse than that. There was the guy, the dude who actually burned her. This guy, Sebastian Zapita is his name. In the video, when I first watched it, there's a person who gets up from the bench. They're watching what happened. He gets up and he starts waving something. I don't know. I forget what he had, but he's waving something and fanning the flames. Now, obviously, that's not a good idea. That's just increasing the oxygen, and that's just increasing the burn. So my first thought was, this is a person there that was trying to put her out, but didn't know how to do it. So he was just he thought that by doing that, somehow he was going to suppress the fire. I don't know. That was my first thought. My first thought went to humanity is good. Somebody there, even though they didn't know what they were doing, was trying to put this woman out. Turns out the guy that was fanning the flames was actually intentionally knew what he was doing and was consciously fanning the flames to increase the burn. He was the guy. Sebastian Zapita was the guy who got up and was doing that. Mind you, there's officers walking by. I can't understand how this happened. I can't. For the life of me, I need someone to explain it to me because I just don't get it. And I don't know how it's not the most leading story in the last since it took place. Like how these officers aren't being questioned, nothing's being done. And it's just going to be swept under the rug. I think the most news that we're getting is about identifying her, right? The forensic investigation trying to figure out who she was, either through fingerprint, which they probably can't get because they're burned. So typically when fingerprints are not a source, like when a body's been in water for too long and it's waterlogged and it's hard to get the prints. You can still get them, but it's hard. I digress. But being burned like that and being burned beyond recognition, it's usually through teeth, right? So I don't know to what degree enamel, how much of that burns up or does not burn. I'm pretty sure the enamel stays, right? Because like skeletons have teeth, right? So I don't think teeth actually burned up. So I think that's how they're trying to identify her. And that's the only thing on the air that seems to be the thing with the news. Like they're still waiting to identify her, but they don't really say anything beyond that. And I just can't fathom it. I really can't. And I don't know what's happening in my city. I really don't. And the climate of the whole Daniel Penny thing, I'm seeing videos now. I'm seeing more videos where people are highlighting and they're doing tapes with their phones, videos, and they are pointing out homeless, mentally ill people getting on the train and causing a ruckus. This is not new to us New Yorkers. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that any of these incidents, like, a crazy person on the train, a homeless person on the train, it seems to be dangerous, or it seems to be a threat to my fellow New Yorkers and riders. I'm not suggesting to you that that's okay. We're used to it. But at the same point, I am kind of telling you that we are used to it. And there's a way about going about handling that. Now, I did see, I think in New York Post, I saw a video clip with one of the leaders from the, what are they called? The Guardian Angels. I'm sorry. The Guardian Angels are sort of reinvigorated. They are reestablished, and they are actually going to be policing the trains and helping out with these things, which I think is a great thing. So I saw that, but I saw how some of the tactics that he was describing was, being on the cars, looking out when they stop in stations, looking north, looking south, looking to see where officers are positioned in case they do need to alert the officers of something, it takes something, to handle a situation. But the Daniel Penny thing, right? This is what I always say about the Daniel Penny thing. We killed Jordan Neely. He was responsible for that man's death. And this idea that we're now allowed to premeditate when we think something could be wrong with a person or they might hurt someone, so we should get up, beat the hell out of them, and possibly kill them, and then walk away and go, well, hey, I thought he was going to bomb the train. I mean, that's the precedent that was set by that case is going to forever bite us in the ass, no matter how you slice it. It's just, he was totally responsible for that kid's death. And we have to understand, there are things that happen on these trains. We need to be vigilant. We need to pay attention. We need to be mindful of what's around us. We should protect fellow citizens. I'm never against that. I was never against that with the Daniel Penny thing. I'm not suggesting that in that moment, if he thought, for whatever reason, again, Jordan Neely did not touch anyone. But if Penny thought it was okay to get up and grab a guy, throw him to the ground, and then choke him out for 6 minutes, the 6-minute choke out and the killing of the man was the problem. We can't just take it upon ourselves to say, that guy looks disturbing. That guy seems disturbing. He looks like he might hurt somebody, and just get up and kill people. Why was there not someone who jumped this guy who set a woman on fire? Why did someone not jump on it? Where are all the people who should have been on top of that guy? I don't know. Moving on, because this makes me sick to talk about it. But I want to get to the murder, the brutal, barbaric murder. Robert Brooks. Let's start here, though. So, officers in Utica, in a prison, basically 13 to 14 officers are being investigated by the FBI now, I believe. And I believe Letitia James has filed an investigation and released all this video cam footage. I'm not going to play it. Again, you guys have probably seen it by now. I highly suggest you watch it to see what I'm talking about, to understand the brutality and the barbarism of these people, these individuals. This is what I found funny. CNN puts out a report before allegedly participating in the beating of Robert Brooks. Before allegedly participating. They didn't allegedly participate. There's video, multiple video of them beating a man to death. There's no more allegedly. They beat a man to death. They beat a man to death. And I'm waiting for the people to say, well, we don't know what happened before he was in cuffs and helpless, and they beat the hell out of him. Literally beat him to death. Oh, we don't know. What was he like? Was he a crackhead? Or was he a criminal? Yeah, he was a criminal. He was in prison. He was being transferred. He was in jail, I think, for 12. I think he was supposed to be in for 12 years for assault or stabbing his ex-girl. Something. He did something heinous. He did something terrible. I'm not advocating for him, his life, in terms of how great of a prisoner he was or why he was in jail or wasn't in jail. It's not even relevant. He was beaten to death. He was a human being. I was very conscious on my social media. If you follow me on X, you can follow me on X if you'd like. If you're still on X and you haven't, abandoned for Blue Sky or something like that. I was really conscious to use the word in capital letters. I use human being. They beat a human being to death because I don't want to make it black, white, this, that. Because what are we really looking at? We're watching a human being being beat. And anyone can understand that. Whether you're Asian, white, it doesn't make a difference. If you watch a human being get beat to death, there has to be something wrong with you if you can somehow make the case that it was okay for the officers to do that. And there's always going to be somebody, probably in my own comments here, I'm waiting for you to show your ugly self, your keyboard, behind your keyboard carriage, that's going to say something like, well, he died because, he had something in his throat. He had a problem he was born with, and that's why he died. Him getting beat by 13, 14 officers, yeah, that had nothing to do with it. I'm waiting for some moron. Go ahead, be a moron and get in my comments and tell me that the death of Robert Brooks wasn't a direct result of him being pounded out, by a ton of officers. Go ahead and do that. You tell me. Anyway, this is another situation where it seems as if mainstream media news doesn't seem to take an interest in it. To me, this would be one of the leading stories. I purposely put on legacy media in the morning. Now, I didn't put on CNN, so I highly doubt they're making this their prime thing, right? But I would expect this to be in that first run of leading stories. Obviously, the first one would have been Jimmy Carter, right? Rest in peace, Jimmy Carter. I'm not going to talk about Jimmy Carter, about his presidency, what he's like as a man. I'm not going to talk about his politics and positions and what he did or didn't do during his time in office. I'm just going to show respect and say rest in peace to Jimmy Carter. But that would be the leading news. I get it. But nowhere did I see anything about Robert Brooks, a guy being beaten to death on camera. And all of these officers, mind you, all of these officers still have their jobs, and there's no as of this date, at the time of this recording right now, 10:26 a.m. on Monday, December 30th, Eastern Standard Time, these men have not been brought up on charges, arrested, nothing. They should have been arrested immediately. Immediately. It probably should take, at most, it should have taken 24 hours to do some quick investigation, look at a few things, question a couple of them, and then just drag them into cuffs and put them in cells, and then await for their arraignment and whatever it's going to be. But no, I believe they're still free, and I'm sickened by that. I am totally sickened by that. Then I find the morons on X who I appreciate, because again, I'm all for free speech, and I don't think we should stop people from saying things that we don't like or don't agree with. But you get people on X who are showing a BLM protest. I guess BLM got together to protest in New York, and they made the post to say BLM protest in New York, only 20 people showed. What does that tell you? And then all the comments below were like, yeah, it doesn't really matter, and BLM is insignificant, and yeah, what does BLM stand for? Buying large mansions. I agree, and with the comments regarding BLM not necessarily being the movement it's supposed to be or should have been or live up to, and it clearly was a scam. I agree with a lot of that. However, I had to reply there and say, what are you suggesting, that a man, a human being beaten to death on camera is something that should just be swept under the rug or forgotten about simply because BLM's movement or BLM's particular protest in this matter didn't garner a lot of support? I don't understand the point of even pointing it out. It's as if to say the attitude of these people is, yeah, whatever, who cares? A man was beaten to death. And yeah, you know, you want to do that? A black man was beaten to death by a bunch of white officers. Again, hate to go there. I like to keep it first at the level of human. We're all human beings. A human being was beat to death. A black man was beat to death by a bunch of white people. I'm done. We'll see where this goes, because it gets me I get angrier and angrier by the second just talking about it, because I'm sick of it. Speaking of CNN, let's get to Trump for a second, since I mentioned the election. Obviously, the Trump-Harris thing was the biggest thing of, the election was the biggest thing. But I want to get to Trump because CNN, speaking of CNN, they did like a wrap up. My wife's telling me I didn't see it. They did a wrap up of I think it was the top 10 crime stories or something, or like engaging stories of 2024. Not one mention of the near assassination, the attempted assassination on a former president running for re-election who won, right? So not a single mention of that moment by CNN in their year wrap-up of those stories. That's almost when you think about it. If you're someone sitting there who still watches CNN, you should be looking at yourself going, go find a mirror and go, holy cow, really? Like, that just doesn't make any sense. It's not even possible. Even if you hate the man and wanted him to, be like, whatever your thing is about Trump, there's no way you could say from a news perspective, no way you could take a news organization serious where they count down 10 things that took place that year, and that wasn't the biggest story. Had that been the other way around, it would still be the largest news story in the world. And as we all know, the assassination came, and then another one came. An assassination attempt came, and then another one came. And it barely made news. It made news, but in a very, very low-key sort of way. It's nothing what it would have been had this been Joe Biden. I just thought that was really interesting. But now let's move on now to the larger news. There's trouble in MAGA land. Oh, the MAGA Knights. Are they MAGA Knights? MAGA heads? What are they called? MAGA. Someone tell me in the comments what they're called. MAGA. I don't even know. Whatever they're called. Anyway, there's trouble because Elon Musk, billionaire boy, richest man in the world, richest man ever, and Vivek Ramaswamy, another billionaire entrepreneur, made tweets. I'm not going to get into the tweets. I'm not going to read. You've probably read them. You've heard all this. I'm just going to give you my feedback on some of this. The H1B Visas situation and immigration and hiring of immigrants who are skilled workers versus, hiring here at home in America and all of that. apparently Elon and Vivek pissed off the whole MAGA people, the whole MAGA movement people who were just like, whoa, what about America? I thought it was America first. MAGA country, my Chevy pickup, my Ford F-150, or my Cybertruck, whatever it is. American automobiles and gasoline in America. What people forget is Elon Musk is created the largest EV company, the greatest EV company ever of all time. I'm a proud Tesla owner, so I'm not going to ever stop praising Tesla because it's a great product, right? But if we drill down to the reality of the situation, a man worth $400 billion basically is in the ear of the president-elect and positioned himself there rather neatly. Vivek Ramaswamy is an entrepreneur and a businessman, and they are essentially fighting for cheap labor and to put their companies more profitable by hiring cheaper people. Now, I can tell you there's so much to be debated about a lot of this stuff. A lot of it has to do with Ramaswamy is the one who I think really pissed the most people off because he made a lot of comments about American culture and Americans being lazy, essentially. He gave a long speech. I'm not going to get into it, but he calls out Steve Urkel and all sorts of stuff and Screech and all these. He calls out all TV shows and pop culture and a bunch of things, essentially saying that we're lazy and that we need to work harder and focus more on education so that we don't complain when situations like this happen, which is kind of just really not the right thing to say, although I understand what he's trying to say. He's essentially trying to say, look, other cultures, and we've known this for years, this is not anything new. Other cultures take way more measures in their education system. In China, they educate their children differently. Their school system is different. Their focus on education is different than America. I think we know that, and I don't think it's wrong or anti-American to say it that way, that, yeah, I think we've fallen behind in English and math and science. We're not the number one, sort of the way what's his name said in that show, The Newsroom, where he makes the comment about America not being the greatest in the world, the number one country in the world. When that student asked him a question about what makes America the greatest country in the world, and he said, it's not. We are last in this, last in that. We're highest in incarcerated number of individuals. Our debt is bad. But my point is, it's the point that he was making, it comes down to how he said it. Really? Right? That if you think about it, that's what it comes down to. How did he talk to people? And not to mention, we thought the MAGA people, all the people up top, we thought you guys are all America first. That's what we thought. So this whole thing is, to me, really about a billionaire, two billionaires, one's multi-billionaire and the other, whatever, and them essentially getting their way in office. They bought their way in there. And they're essentially looking out for themselves and for their profit and for their companies. That's what this whole thing's about. Now, look, my personal take on all of this, do I think Americans need to focus more on education? Do we need to yeah, I think we need to become less the TikTok generation and less the whole, hey, I'm going to become an influencer and that's the new job route these days. Nothing against that and people who do that, right? Here I am. I'm on YouTube, right? And TikTok. But I do think there should be a much more money put into education. Much more teachers should be paid way higher. Teachers are probably the most important thing in our land, next to our officers and people who are charged with protecting us. I think we should take care of our education system. I think we should revamp a whole lot of it. And I think we should put much more money into that. I think we need to put money into certain school districts and certain zip codes. And this does come down to, if you think about it, it's an economic thing, right? Like, are we really funding poorer neighborhoods and those school systems? Are we making college education something easy to obtain for everybody? Is there equal access? Are we really pushing these skills and these things that are going to be needed later in life? I don't think so. So we need to work on that. Now, on a personal note, I've been affected by the whole H1B visa thing because one of the things, I'm a consultant in the pharmaceutical industry. It's one of the things I do. And I have contracts with these companies. And I have been let go. In fact, recently, one of my last contracts ended in April of 2024. That contract ended because a company came in, purchased a pharmaceutical company that I worked for. Again, I was a consultant with them, a contractor, 2 years. My rate was pretty high in the industry. I have years of experience in it, so I get like a senior rate, which is above 70, 80 an hour. I was notified that this company was going to be changing some things. They were going to be offshoring or bringing in people to basically take the contractors' jobs and blah, 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 whatever. Long story short, I wound up training the Indian worker who took my place as a contractor consultant in that IT space. And they probably paid that person $25 to $30 an hour at the most. And I've been subject to that plenty of times. I've had recruiters who call when I do get contracts. I have recruiters call me and they'll say, hey, we have this contract with Pfizer or whoever it is, and Sanofi Aventis or whatever. And they're paying, they'll ask me what my rate is. What's my going rate? And I'll tell them anywhere between whatever. And then they'll come back and they'll tell me, oh yeah, the client's only paying $25, $30 an hour for this, or whatever it is, sometimes lower. And which I'm not going to take that. Now, the funny thing is, in that industry, specifically in pharma, specifically in like Jersey and South Jersey, a lot of these companies, a lot of the Indian hustle and work and do what they have to do, but they live 10 people to a house, right? Somewhere in Lawrenceville or Princeton, New Jersey, or Somerset, somewhere out there, and where a lot of these pharma companies are located. And they can afford $25 an hour wages. They'll do the job for $25 an hour. And again, they just want to be here. So they get the H1B visa and they work and they're willing to take the crap that a normal American would not take under those conditions because we don't need the visa. So this is a complicated mess. There's a lot going on. And I'm directly have been impacted by it. I know exactly what it's like. So, it's going to be interesting to watch all these things play out, especially with Trump, because Trump back in, 2017, did a whole thing where he talked about he was all against the H1B visas and hiring American, buying. I think he signed an order that was called Buy American, Hire American. Literally. Matter of fact, let me see if I have that. Let's look for that. I think I have that here. This hopefully doesn't get screwed up.
That's why I'm here today. In just a few moments, I will be signing a Buy American and Hire American executive order. You haven't heard about that in a long time in this country. With this action, we are sending a powerful signal to the world. We're going to defend our workers, protect our jobs, and finally, put America first.
Now, see, that doesn't quite square with what's happening now with Vivek and Elon. This is where this whole division is taking place in the MAGA party. We'll see how this plays out. I don't know. There's a lot happening here before Trump gets in office, and old man Biden is put out the pasture. He's on his way out. But before Biden goes, we have the lovely, incredible Dr. Leana Wen out there telling us that, you know what? We might have a problem with the bird flu, and we all need to go get vaccinated. We need to start shutting the world down now. That's what it seems like. Yes. I'm totally. First of all, without getting too long into this H1N bird flu thing, whatever, there's no evidence of human to human transmission of this virus. Let's just leave that there. Let's leave that up front. And yet, they're already sounding the alarm, blaring the sirens on CNN and making the circuit with this woman, this criminal who did the same thing previously during the other pandemic, and she advocated for mask wearing and shutting things down and mandating vaccinations and mandating stay at home and all these different policies. Now she's at it again. And they're all lining up, and it's going to be the whole thing. We're all going to start to panic, and you can feel, and they're doing this right before the inauguration. See if we can shut the world down. We can cause panic, cause fear. It's all happening again. Mind you, look, we live in a different world now. We live in a world, fortunately, where you can find alternative sources of information. You can find alternative narratives. You can find information. You can do your own research. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Having someone like a criminal-minded Fauci or Bill Gates tell you that it's wrong to do your own research is essentially telling Americans that it's not good for you to understand things. It's not good for you to look things up. It's not good for you to use the resources that you have around you in order to question things. That's essentially what's going on. Right? When they tell you don't do your own research, leave it to the scientist. Fauci is the science. No, he's not. Fauci is not the science. But speaking of which, I'm looking forward to watching, what is it? Thank you. I think it's Thank You, Tony Fauci. It's on Tucker Carlson's network. I saw a thing for it, and I want to watch this documentary that was done, but I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Let me know if you guys have seen that. Anyway, the other interesting part, I think, with them doing the push for, again, they got these vaccinations ready. We need to start getting everyone vaccinated right away. We need to start locking things down. Never, just like in the last one, not one iota of, hey, listen, I got an idea. It's winter. We got flu season. You got different things happening. COVID's still lingering around. We might have this bird virus, even though it's never gone human. Why don't you tell people to get vitamin D? Hey, if you're staying inside, you've been locked up in the house, you've been cooped up because it's been the holidays, get outside. Make sure you're getting your exercise. Make sure you're taking vitamin D supplements if, in fact, you're not getting enough outdoor sunlight, or you live in a region where there's not a ton of sun. There's none of that as usual. From the beginning, you would think, just from a small lesson learned, that they would lead with some of those things. They'd have a doctor talking, hey, look, but they can't. They can't, because they know, first of all, it hasn't transmitted from human to human. There's no evidence of it yet. So what are they going to do? Get on and tell you how to avoid? It's just ridiculous. They just want to push their vaccination, and they want to push their hyperbolic narrative of the world's going to end and you should be scared. And don't worry, big government is here to save you. Specifically the Biden administration, because she's literally saying that she wants the Biden administration, before they leave office, to do all this stuff. Oh, we need them to hurry up. Yeah, before he leaves, let's kind of let's finish our criminal-minded empire before he gets out. Let's do a few more crimes. That's essentially what this is. Let's give all the money over to Ukraine and and to Israel, and also let's get the American citizens hyped up again and scared about this particular virus, again, which has no evidence of being transmitted from human to human. Let's get the vaccinations on the ready. Let's get everyone thinking about it. Ridiculous. But let's move on. One of the other large stories that it'd be impossible for me not to talk about is Diddy, right? If that's not the biggest, does that qualify as with the election and then the Diddy thing happening and his arrest and the video of, first the lawsuits and then the Cassie video and then the arrest and all that stuff. And, now Jay being named in this whole thing. And him sitting in the jail cell being denied bail 3 times, Diddy, and all the allegations and all the Diddy stuff, the freak offs and all of that. This has been in something else of a year when it comes down to that. I think next year might even be more extraordinary, because his trial, I believe, is set to take place in May. So a whole lot more is coming down the pike. People are saying there's a whole lot of things happening in terms of names that are going to be named and lists that are going to be opened up and all sorts of things. Jay-Z took a small loss. If you remember, we talked about Jay-Z in this latest case where he was named in the allegation of the assault on a 13-year-old girl back in 24 years ago, I believe. Jay had come out with a very aggressive statement against that attorney, Tony Busby, and against the whole case, and kind of did his thing. I spoke about that on this channel, and I also said that I thought that was not the appropriate way to go about his response. I see what he was trying to do, but it was not appropriate. Now, the judge seemed to feel the same way and smack Mr. Carter, sort of, in a way, gave him a little spanking, letting him know that, look, the case is going to move forward and you're not going to intimidate and do things, and he can remain anonymous. Now, I don't think that means that the judge is rendering any type of opinion in whether or not the case has merit. It was more about saying, look, you can't necessarily bully people from your position and you can't do certain things, and she can remain anonymous. So to me, things move forward. So we'll keep you posted on Jigga Man and Diddy and how that whole thing works out. I'm trying to think of what else I want to talk to. I feel terrible sitting here right now. I'm coughing between takes and I just don't feel well. But yeah, it's been a crazy year, and I'm sad that the state of the world where we're at right now feels it's just unsettled, right? It's unsettled. Everything is so up in the air. I feel racism is on the rise. I really feel that. I feel watching the comments and seeing certain, not that it's never been there, but I feel that certain things have amplified it. It's the best way I can say it. And yeah, I think I'm going to add the Trump election to that. The MAGA folks who are just seeing this as this thing where everything becomes this white versus thing, and I've spoke about this before previously on my channel. I think I did it when I talked about the recent Miss Universe win, who was blonde hair, blue eyed. And I said, good for her. But I mentioned the fact that with all of in the last 10, 15 years, this idea of making the white male the enemy of everyone was not a good idea. I'm not suggesting to you that white America does not have a past. I'm not suggesting to you that white America doesn't have a present right now. And there are those folks who are, in fact, racist white supremacists. I would be ridiculous for me to say that they don't exist and that we need to figure out what to do with them, right? I think my point is, when you spread that across to every person who has white skin, every Caucasian male, you're essentially just building their coalition against everyone who's against them. You're creating an army because they're all feeling threatened. You can't threaten every single person, call them all a racist just because they were born white or have conservative values or whatever it is. You can't do that. It creates hostility, and I'm seeing that hostility become more and more and more and more prevalent as I look at a lot of the posts on social media. I look at a lot of the news. I look at some of the things happening. The Daniel Penny thing added to it in its own way. Here's a white guy who took out a black guy on a train, right? And got away with it. And then he's taking pictures with Trump and J.D. Vance, a couple days later after he's acquitted. Not acquitted, but yeah, but he found not guilty on anything. So I feel the racism is alive, and I feel that the MAGA movement, this whole thing, and I'm not saying that MAGA itself is just racist, but let's be honest, there's some of that embedded in this. And there are people on those platforms, there are people on these platforms, there are people in mainstream media, people in alternative media spaces who amplify that feeling and that sentiment. And it doesn't feel good. And also the idea that the world is in a state of, constant disarray when it comes to the Middle East and war and nuclear war and what's happening. We're being distracted. We've got Luigi Mangione, who I didn't even mention yet, right? I'm not even going to, but the whole Luigi Mangione thing, did he shoot him? Did he not shoot him? Was that him? The guy they got? Is this all a setup? What is going on here? Between that, the UFOs or drones that are flying over Jersey and the Eastern Seaboard, and now apparently the Midwest and wherever, California, our mind is focused on these things. Luigi Mangione, drones in the sky. This is what we're focused on. And there are things taking place globally that still demand our attention, yet we've been distracted. That's it, man. Year to end. Year end Time to Talk podcast. I will be back beginning of the year. Looking forward to talking about a bunch of things. We will get into it. I got a few things I want to say about. I want to talk about Candace Owens. Shout out to Candace Owens. I respect Candace Owens, but we're going to get into a much longer discussion. Her and Andrew Tate. A couple other things I want to get off my chest in 2025. I wish everyone well. I wish the world well. I wish my Christian brothers, my Jewish brothers, Muslim brothers, I don't care what you are. Atheist, agnostic, Buddhist, this, that, Zen, I don't care. Whoever you worship, I don't care. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to Christ. Shout out to Allah. Shout out to... I just wish love to everybody. I just hope everybody can figure it all out. I don't want to say, can't we all just get along? I just want to shout out and say, we need to figure out how to communicate and love one another way more in 2025, because it's going to get bumpy, and we need to hang on. And that's all I can say. Look, Time to Talk podcast. I am your host, Charles Scar. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe now below. I'm going to make 2025 the bomb. We're almost 5,000 subscribers, which I'm pretty happy. We started like mid to late September. We're about 5,000 subscribers, getting there. And I'm looking forward to, the next 5,000, another 5,000, get 50,000, 100,000 and more and beyond. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate you being here and watching these videos. Let me know in the comments below. You just shout me out, say Happy New Year or something. Happy New Year to everybody. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this year. What was the most impactful to you? And I wish your families well, and I will see you on the next Time to Talk podcast. Peace.